Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 stupid criminals who recorded their crimes. Number 10. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel.
Anneliese Michel, a young Catholic German woman, exhibited strange behaviors towards the end of her life. Claiming to be possessed by Nero, Hitler, and other demons, she made strange faces, suffered seizures, and demonstrated an aversion to holy symbols such as the crucifix. Although her family attempted to treat her medically, they gave up when her symptoms continued anyway. They enlisted fathers Arnold Renz and Ernst Alt to perform an exorcism, which the priests recorded on audio tapes which can be listened to online. The strange noises made by Michel as her priests try to free her of her claimed possession are downright chilling, whether you believe they be demonic in nature or just the ravings of a schizophrenic. In any event, these efforts to cleanse her failed as she endured almost a year of semi-starvation and dehydration. Unsurprisingly, her malnourished body gave out on July 1, 1976. Both Michel's parents and the two priests were charged with negligent homicide. They were convicted of manslaughter and given a suspended sentence of 6 months in jail. Her story inspired the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose and is one of the most famous exorcisms in Christian history.
Number 9. Leonard Lake and Charles Ng.
Leonard Lake and Charles Chit-Chat Ng are two of the most infamous raping and murdering duos in modern history. Their crimes have included rape, torture, and murder of anywhere from 11 to 25 victims, all between 1983 and 1985. The two spent their time together bringing victims to their ranch, where they deluded themselves into believing that they would be the survivors of a nuclear war and would use sex slaves to repopulate the world as part of what they dubbed Operation Miranda. Their downfall came when Ng was caught shoplifting, and Lake was arrested for possessing an illegal silencer on a firearm discovered by police in his car. Authorities subsequently discovered numerous bodies of men, women, and even a baby buried on their ranch. To add to the horror, but to better confirm Lake and Ng's guilt, was the discovery of videotapes of their crimes, some of which can be viewed online. These tapes do not show the murders, but they do suggest the sexual and mental abuse of their female victims. One woman even asks about her baby, only to be told by Lake that it's going to be taken away. Lake escaped court justice by committing suicide. He swallowed a cyanide capsule after his arrest, while Ng is currently on death row at San Quentin State Prison in California.
Number 8. Prince Yormie Johnson.
Liberia's 21st president, Samuel Canyon Doe, is not exactly a sympathetic figure, coming to power after a violent coup toppled previous president William Richard Tolbert Jr. Given the bloody rise to power of Doe, it should hardly come as a surprise to anyone that his fall was equally bloody. When that fall came about 10 years after his coming to power, a man named Prince Yormie Johnson captured Doe after Doe lost a gun battle against the rebel forces. A relatively lengthy video of Doe's subsequent torment, as well as various photographs of his torture and murder, are available on the internet. One video, for example, shows a Budweiser drinking Johnson watching as a partially unclothed and bloody Doe has his ear cut off.
Number 7. Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka.
Canadian serial killers Paul Kenneth Bernardo and his wife Karla Leanne Homolka are responsible for various sexual assaults and at least 3 murders, including Karla's sister Tammy. The videotaped portion of their crimes, known as the schoolgirl killer murders, includes the rape of Tammy. Reportedly, the tapes show Homolka sexually assaulting 4 females and drugging at least 1 unconscious victim. Reports of what these tapes contain is shocking to say the least, and the tapes do serve as crucial evidence in support of the 2 perpetrators' convictions. Bernardo received a sentence of 25 years without the possibility of parole, while Homolka was sentenced to 12 years. In the aftermath of the trial, Canadian authorities determined that they had no possible future use for the videotapes, so destroyed all 6 videotapes depicting the torture and rape of the duo's various victims.
Number 6. The Master Butcher.
German cannibal Armin Maiweiss's crime involved a bafflingly willing victim, Bernard Jürgen Brandes. Maiweiss and Brandes met via the website The Cannibal Cafe, which is exactly what it sounds like. They agreed to videotape Maiweiss consuming Brandes. The tape has not been released to the public, but if you must, you can see a reenactment in the movie Grim Love. What is alleged on the actual tape is mind-blowing. For example, Maiweiss tries and fails to bite off Brand's penis, so he cuts it off and both men try to eat it before feeding it to a dog. Maiweiss finally killed Brands by stabbing him in the throat before hanging his body on a meat hook. Over the course of several months, Maiweiss ate much of the fleshy remains of Brands. Maiweiss was eventually arrested, tried, and convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years in prison. He was then retried, convicted of murder, and sentenced to life imprisonment, which was probably a wise decision given that he allegedly still fantasizes about eating flesh.
Number 5. Various beheadings by Islamic terrorists.
In the years following, the American-led coalitions to defeat Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, various terrorist groups developed stiff and barbaric resistance to the coalition forces. This included videotaped beheadings of, in some cases, civilian journalists. For example, Daniel Pearl, an American journalist, was kidnapped and executed on film via beheading in Pakistan. The eventually arrested terrorist Khalid Sheikh Mohammed claimed he personally beheaded Pearl. In addition, another noted terrorist, Abu Musab al-Zakwari, personally beheaded American Jewish businessman Nicholas Evan Berg in Iraq. Later that same year, both American helicopter engineer Paul Marshall Johnson Jr. and South Korean translator and Christian missionary Kim Sung-il were videotaped being beheaded in Saudi Arabia and Iraq, respectively. Finally, Owen Eugene Armstrong was also videotaped being beheaded, possibly by al-Zakwari as well, along with 2 other hostages in the autumn of 2004 in Iraq. Given the multi-faith and international background of these victims, global condemnation of these acts of terrorism has been considerable. Even many who opposed the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan could hardly endorse such barbaric medieval murder of civilians. Unfortunately, not all responsible for these crimes against humanity have been apprehended, but at least now deceased mass murderers Zakari and bin Laden can no longer participate in or endorse such savagery. Watching the videos of these murders is truly stomach-churning.
Number 4. Mr. Hands.
Mr. Hands is the nickname of Kenneth Pinyan. His videos are gross enough from the news descriptions that there's even less need for our eyes to view them than with some of the other videos mentioned here. According to media sources, Pinyan had recorded himself engaging in bestiality and then shockingly and stupidly distributed these recordings online. In 2005, during an incident that has become known as the Enumclaw horse sex case, Pinyan and 2 other men decided to include a stallion known as Big Dick in one of their depraved acts of animal abuse. Without getting into all of the details, if you've ever heard the expression hung like a horse, well, it exists for a reason, one that Pinyan learned the hard way after he ultimately succumbed to death via a perforated colon. Given his death, he could not be criminally charged with anything. However, one of his accomplices, 54-year-old photographer James Michael Tate, pleaded guilty to trespassing on the farm in which the fatal incident occurred. The state of Washington, where the bestiality took place, subsequently made such acts, both the act itself and the recording of it, formally illegal.
Number 3. The Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs.
The Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs refer to Ukrainian serial killers Viktor Sayenko and Igor Saprunyok, both of whom were arrested and charged with 21 murders, as well as a third conspirator, Alexander Hanzia, charged with 2 armed robberies. Of the people included on this list, the Maniacs are among the most prolific in terms of both animal and human abuse in a relatively limited amount of time. They committed as many, if not more, crimes in 2 months than Laken Ung did in nearly 3 years. They photographed and videotaped acts of brutality against everything from cats to young women to old men. All of these horrors that made up their crime spree occurred from June through July 2007. Of the victims videotaped or photographed, the most well-known was 48-year-old Sergei Yadzenko, who is shown in a despicable video titled 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. In the video, the 3 thugs stab their helpless victim in the eye and stomach with a screwdriver before hammering his head repeatedly. Ultimately, the 2 murderers received life sentences in prison, while Hanza received 9 years.
Number 2. The Murderers of Muammar Gaddafi.
Muammar Gaddafi was the self-proclaimed King of Kings of Africa and leader of Libya for over 40 years. His October 2011 video-recorded murder by rebels is perhaps the most widely seen of all these murders we've mentioned here. Multiple angles of the events leading to his death have been seen on numerous news reports and websites around the world. Gaddafi's death is one of the most notable of recent history, enough so to be the subject of a rather lengthy Wikipedia article with videos of his murder remaining widely available. The defeated Gaddafi is seen on the videos pleading with his captors, who shout and cheer as he is manhandled by them. He appears in various videos bloodied, partially stripped, possibly beaten and shot, and at one point has something shoved between his butt cheeks, suggesting he may have even been sexually assaulted or sodomized by a stick or bayonet prior to finally succumbing to some number of gunshot wounds. Whether or not you consider Gaddafi a sponsor of terrorism, he was apparently captured and summarily executed without trial, which makes how he died technically a criminal act.
Number 1. Luka Rocco Magnotta.
The most recent videotaped crime of note is also one of the worst. It appears to come from Canadian porn star Luka Rocco Magnotta, who is currently imprisoned for a wide array of sickening videotapes of him torturing kittens by suffocating them in a vacuum cleaner or by feeding them to a large snake. But even more controversial is an 11-minute recording titled One Lunatic, One Ice Pick, an obvious allusion to the most notable recording by the Ukrainian murderers listed here. For as bad as the Ukrainian murder tape is, so too is the video of Magnotta purportedly committing acts of murder and even cannibalism and necrophilia on someone named Lin Jun. After a dismembered foot, likely belonging to Jun, was mailed to the national headquarters of Canada's Conservative Party, while a right foot was delivered to St. George's School and a right hand to False Creek Elementary School, Magnotta was ultimately captured in Berlin, having apparently fled from Canada. He was returned to his home country, where he was imprisoned for his crimes.
So I really hope you found that video interesting, if not particularly enjoyable. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below, and don't forget to subscribe for other videos just like this every day of the week. Check out some of our other videos over there on the right, and thank you for watching.